Sup peeps, Saw here, and something a little different for this video. This was something that a lot of people wanted to see me do. Outside of gaming, I have a big interest in British comedy. Well, classic British comedy, and some modern. I wanted to do a video to show a collection of the sets that I have of some of these shows, and in one situation, movies. And also to talk a little bit about each one for those of you who don't live in the UK, and also to give you a little history of of one of the best things about, well, my country is our comedy. And also I was going to talk about some of the ones that I don't have, but I would still recommend that you seek out. Okay, let's start. They're all in alphabetical order. Now, I will say a couple of these shows are a product of their time and can kind of be maybe offensive to some people with today's sensibilities, but we'll get to those when we get to those. First, we have Absolutely Fabulous. This set includes the 6 series, the gay special, so yes, controversy already, Lash Out and White Box. Now, Absolutely Fabulous is about a woman, her best friend, a woman called Adina, her best friend Patsy, and her daughter and her mother. They get into all kinds of situations involving like jobs with fashion and things like that. It's a very female-centric show, and it's like its main thing is about like people who think they're higher up than they are, and basically, yeah, it's hilarious. It also had a movie that released a few years ago in theaters. It stars Dawn French and Jennifer Saunders. Jennifer Saunders might be familiar to some of you who are outside of the UK, because she's been in quite a few movies. But yes, Dawn French is also the star of Vicar Dibley, which is a set I do not have, but a show I would recommend. A very, very hilarious show, especially if you're a female. I would highly recommend this one. Let me show you the sets as well, actually, inside. We have here, there's a booklet in here too, I think. Yes, there's a booklet here that shows everything. There's the 2 characters. Yeah, you can see a lot of like very girly stuff here, but the show is actually very... I would say even if you're a guy, you might find this show very, very funny. But yeah, I'd say probably the best episode of this show is when they go on holiday to France and they end up in the wrong place. And they get pissed drunk, and they think the guy who owns the place is trying to hit on them, basically. You have Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, the first disc of Series 4, Series 4 Disc 2, Series 5 Disc 1, Series 5 Disc 2, the gay episode, the Lash Out and White Box, and... what's that to say? Oh, a special episode is on there. So yeah, there's that one. Let me just... oh, we're having the same issue that we always freaking have with these. Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a difficult thing, isn't it? Getting these in and out of these sets. Yeah, this is what I really should have prepared for. You know what, we'll leave it aside there. We'll sort it out afterwards. Next, we have one of my favourites. I think this is one of the best British comedies. Well, series to the final series are... the first series is a little bit iffy. We have Black Adder. This has the Black Adder, Black Adder 2, Black Adder the 3rd, and Black Adder goes 4th. This show is basically a pokes fun at different time periods in British history. You have the Victorian times. Well, medieval times, I believe, is the original one. You have Victorian times, you have Jane Austen's time, and then you have World War. The World War series is probably the best, and this show has probably one of the most heart-wrenching, emotional, tearjerker endings of any British sitcom ever. It includes... This is going to be a disaster, because these are all going to be piling up. It has the Blackadder, Blackadder 2, Blackadder 3, or Blackadder the Third, and Blackadder Goes Forth. And it also has a special discs that includes Blackadder's Christmas Carol and the Cavalier Years, and Blackadder Rides Again, which is a special documentary movie. Brilliant show. Would highly recommend this one to anyone who is interested in these kind of shows. Now, we have one which is kind of a lesser known British sitcom, but stars somebody who is part of one of the biggest British comedy film franchises. We have Bless This House, which stars Sidney James. Basically, this is your traditional British domestic sitcom. I would say this is pretty much like what a lot of US sitcoms are. It's basically just a domestic sitcom that has a lot of weird, funny situations. This includes every episode of all the series and the movies. This is 12 seasons, all 65 episodes of the series, and a feature film version. So this show was popular enough to get its own movie. You have all these discs here. And yes, it's basically breaking apart. But yeah, you have all those there. You have... It says here how many series there were. It had, I believe, 6 series and a movie. Yeah. It's difficult to recommend this one, but yeah, it's pretty much a domestic sitcom, if you like that kind of thing there. Now we have a show which I believe certain groups of people have tried to get banned, to no success. We have Bottom. Now, this show... this show is incredibly difficult to describe without seeing it. Basically, the way I would describe this is, it's cartoon violence in a live action show. That's how I would describe it. It's very slapsticky, and a lot of the jokes are pretty much what you would see in stuff like a Looney Tunes cartoon, but in a live action format. Very funny. They did a lot of spin-off material of this. They did a movie called Guest House Paradiso, and they did regular live shows of like massive like specials. These two also were in another show that I love, but sadly do not own, called The Young Ones. Rick Mail, who is here, is no longer with us. And interestingly, to tie this into gaming, over here in the UK, when he was alive, used to do the commercials for the Legend of Zelda games. And of course, I have Adrian Edmondson, who is just a hilarious man, who is incidentally married to Jennifer Saunders from Absolutely Fabulous. This includes all 3 series. Each series has 6 episodes. It's a very crude show. Not the crudest show that we have here. There is one even cruder than this, surprisingly. But it is a show... It's not going to be for everybody. You have to enjoy slapsticky, physical, cartoon violence in a live-action form. Very unique in that respect. I mean, to explain it as one scene, I can use a scene as an example. There is an episode where basically, one of the characters' legs gets nailed to a chair. Yes, that is basically that. There's also an episode where someone has their finger cut off. They're beating each other over the head and poking each other in the eyes. It's very slapsticky, but it's hilarious with it. The theme song is also funny. Now we have a collection of movies. We have the Carry On collection, which is 30 movies. Now these are classic British comedy movies. We have all of these movies. A lot of British icons from comedy are in these movies, like Sid James, Kenneth Williams is in these, Barbara Windsor is in these, Hattie Jakes, and a lot of you'll be surprised who pops up in a lot of these. We have all these here. Also, Leslie Phillips, who voices the British version of Gex in Gex Enter the Gecko, is also in these. There's 30 movies here, all in varying quality. My personal favorites are out of these. I love Carry On Up Kaiba is a hilarious one. Carry On Camping is hilarious. Carry On at Your Convenience is hilarious. Carry On Abroad is my personal favorite. Carry On Cruising is funny as well. Just Carry On Cleo is a classic. Just these are hilarious movies. Very funny. And now we come to one that I've referenced a couple of times in some of my more recent videos. We have Dad's Army. This is another one of my personal favorites. The way to describe Dad's Army is it's basically about the... How do I describe it? It's pretty much about the British Home Guard, who basically defended little towns, front lines during the World Wars against Hitler. Hilarious show. Unfortunately, a few months ago, we lost the only surviving cast member, so unfortunately, every cast member of this show is no longer with us. This is a complete collection, however, the second season, the second series, it says here, contains complete series 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the Christmas specials, and all 3 surviving episodes of series 2. Series 2, unfortunately, has half of its episodes in their original form missing because it was from the time period when BBC junked a lot of things. But this is one of my personal favorites. I think this show is hilarious. I grew up watching reruns of the show. I love it. I just think it's absolutely hilarious. A lot of people would point to the foreign... I can't remember the name of it. The Foreign Spink as the best episode. Like, Don't Tell Me Your Name, Pike. I don't think that's the funniest episode. I think the funniest episode is where Mannering... basically... I think it's a kite. He gets stuck to it and it basically goes on a flight around everywhere. It's just a hilarious show. It's in black and white and color. It began in black and white. But yeah, a very great show and has one of the most patriotic theme songs of any TV show in British history, in my opinion. We come to my personal favorite. I think this is the great... Well, this and 2 others that are coming up, I think are the greatest British sitcoms of all time. Fawlty Towers. This show really needs an introduction. For those of you who somehow are not familiar with it, Fawlty Towers is about this man, Basil Fawlty, his wife, Sybil, the Spanish, he's from Barcelona, waiter, Manuel, and the maid, Polly. Hilarious show. Only has 12 episodes of two series with 12 episodes, but there are 12 episodes of absolute hilarity. There's the iconic German episode. There is the episode here where Basil beats the hell out of his car. There's the hotel inspector episode. There's the episode with the deaf lady. I wanted a room with a sea view. You can see the sea. It's over there between the land and the sky. I need a magnifying telescope to see that. Then may I suggest you move to a hotel closer to the sea, or preferably in it. I adore this show. I think it is the best British comedy ever made. Unfortunately, though, this show has been under fire from certain groups in the recent years, due to this character right here, Manuel. They think he's a stereotype. That's the joke. But, yeah, just a hilarious show. But I would highly recommend everybody watching this seek out, because you'll love it. It's hilarious. It's comedy's universal. Now we come to a show that... How do I describe this one? We come to a show which a lot of people will probably have never heard of or seen, because it's never re-airing. It will never re-air, and for a good reason. In sickness and in health, starring this guy here. This character's called Alf Garnet. In America, if you're watching this in American, if you're familiar with the character Ted Bundy, he is based on this man right here. This is the British version, the British original. Well, this isn't the original. This is the sequel show. The original's over there. Alf Garnet is basically, well, he's a crotchety old man who hates anything that is not patriotically British. He hates people who are not white. He hates gay people. He pretty much hates anything that isn't, far-right British. But yeah, the whole reason with the show was he was supposed to be unlikable. But unfortunately, a lot of people... There's actually an interesting story that Warren Mitchell, who plays Alf Garnet, actually said. He said he got a letter from somebody saying they loved the jokes that he made about black people, and that they agreed with him. And Warren Mitchell, the legend himself, wrote back and said, "Son, you completely missed the goddamn point of the character, didn't you? The whole point of Alf Garnet is supposed to be you're not supposed to like him. You are supposed to disagree with him. He is supposed to be a parody and basically piss take, for want of a better term, of a far-right British bigot. And unfortunately, because of some of the content of this show and the original show, with a lot of the jokes he makes towards people of colour and towards non-straight people, this show, unfortunately, will never re-air as a result of that. But this has all 6 series and the Christmas specials. This is a sequel. You'll see the prequel series later on. But yeah, this show, unfortunately, will never be seen again. Now these 3 go together. We have the Bouquet Residents, the lady of the house speaking, and her long-suffering husband, Richard. We have Keeping Up Appearances Series 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and Series 5. Now, this show is basically about a woman who comes from a basically lower-class family who acts like she's upper class. she wants to act like she is above her social status. There's a joke she makes about her son Sheridan, who has like I can't some said about like a room for a pony. She is pretty much a social commentary on the traditional like upper class Brit. Hilarious show. Roy Clark, who created the show, also created another show that I love that's coming up next. And he created another show that I do not have called Open All Hours. He created these 3 shows, all 3 are hilarious shows. But this show, honestly, this show aired during the 90s, and it is a hilarious show. Some of the situations that this woman finds herself in are just absurd. Some of these situations are completely absurd. She's the only person I know who can go to a stately home to view it and get chased around by a drunken southern countryman, basically. Have her husband fall through the roof, and the dude point out, "Oh, fancy socks." Just this show is absolute hilarious comedy gold. It's just absolutely hilarious. Honestly, just seriously funny. You should seek this show out. Now we have the largest set that I have, and it's the largest set for a reason. This show is in the British history books. This next show is pretty much a staple of British culture. We have Last of the Summer Wine. Now, this show is the longest running British sitcom. This show ran from 1973 till 2010. That means this show ran for longer than my entire lifetime. I grew up watching this show and found it hilarious. The basic premise is you have these 3 old men here, Compo, Foggy, and Clegg. There are other characters that are in the show too. There was another person called Blumiere before they had Foggy, and then there were other characters that were introduced to replace these 2 when Foggy decided to leave. They replaced him with another character. Then Foggy came back, but he unfortunately passed away. And then Compo, unfortunately, the actor playing Compo and the character Compo passed away, so he was replaced. But this guy was always constant. This guy here, Clegg, played by Peter Sallis, who a lot of people outside the UK might know as the voice of Wallace from Wallace and Gromit. This show, it's basically these 3 old men who want to relive their youth. They're old men who never grew up, who want to relive their youth and act like teenagers. Some hilarious situations, including Compo with a hang glider. The runaway bathtub is probably the most iconic episode or moment of this show. He was always harassing, where is she? This lady right here, Nora Batty. He was always harassing her. These are the 3 that eventually, this was the trio that the show ended with, basically. There's also other characters. There's Pearl there, whose husband Howard always ran off with his bicycle and his bike pump to go see Marina, who is not there. That's Howard there. This is Auntie Wainwright, who ran an antique store. Just this show is just a piece of British history. It says here 32 series on 58 discs, which is why I am not getting this one out to show you guys, because we would be here all day. But let me just tell you, this show is this show is a British staple. Guaranteeing you now, this is in the history books. This is the longest running British sitcom. It ran, like I said, from 1973 to 2010. It ran for 37 years, basically. And it ran for so long, it outlived most of the original cast members. But yeah, just a hilarious show that I would strongly urge a lot of people to look up. You might not, if you're outside of the UK, you might not get the humor. Also, this show's close to me because my family is originally from the area of Yorkshire where this show is filmed. So yeah. Next, we have probably a character that everybody here is going to know. We have Mr. Bean. We have one, 2, 3. I'm sorry, these special versions 3 and 4, which make up the entire run of the original show. Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson here, is also the man that played Blackadder. So yes, hilarious character. I don't need to explain what Mr. Bean is. His humor is universal, guaranteeing you pretty much everybody watching this, even if you're not in the UK, knows exactly what this show is, who this character is, why his humor is so universally loved, why he's so hilarious, and why he is a British icon of comedy. Next, we have what I believe to be, well, another one of my personal favorites, but I think is probably most people who know British comedy, who watch British comedy, gonna probably take a guess. This is going to be most people who's watching this' favorite. With Only Fools and Horses. This is a complete collection that has all 7 series and 15 Christmas specials. Here we go. Yeah, all these here. Just this show is pretty much, it's about 2 brothers, Dalboy and Rodney, who are wheeler dealers who are always doing dodgy dealings and getting into all kinds of situations with their three-wheel van. There's a lot, and with their granddad to begin with, and then their uncle, and then Uncle Albert. Pretty much, this show is pretty much quintessential British comedy. It just is. It's just this show. There was a show years ago that did the 100 greatest British sitcoms, and Only Fools and Horses won. This show tops multiple lists of greatest British sitcoms. It is that hilarious. Every single episode of this show is freaking hilarious. Some notable highlights: a touch of glass. Is it a touch of glass or touch of class? I think it's a touch of glass. Let me see. A touch of glass. With the chandelier falling is one of the most iconic British comedy moments. Where Delboy falls through the bar is an iconic moment. The Batman and Robin skit is an iconic moment. Just so many episodes of this show have iconic moments. A lot of British comedy iconic moments came from this show. This is arguably the greatest British sitcom, quintessential. Now we come to Ooh, Betty. Yes, that's the impression of him. It's terrible. Some mothers do have them. This is a complete series with the Christmas specials. This is about a man called Frank Spencer and his wife Betty. Frank he's well-meaning, but he's an idiot. He gets into all kinds of situations. Like it says here, well-meaning and optimistic, but naive, clueless, and spectacularly incompetent, Frank will find situations spiraling hilariously out of control. His long-suffering wife Betty can only stand by and watch as he catapults into a bit of trouble by the simplest task: a window cleaning job, hilarious episode, a driving test, DIY, and an RAF reunion. The RAF reunion is hilarious, a hilarious episode. And of course, one of the most famous British sitcom Christmas episodes is the nativity episode of this show, where he dresses an angel, goes through the roof, and is stuck on the roof, and basically says that everybody can see up his dress. Just yeah, hilarious show. We all know a Frank Spencer in our lives. Now we have probably one of the oldest British sitcoms. This one has a very certain type of humor to it. It's very inoffensive. We have Steptoe & Son. Now, the show in the US, Stanford Son, is actually an American remake of this show. So, if you know the show Stanford Son in America, you know this show. It's basically about a father and son who are rag and bone man trade. They get into all kinds of weird, hilarious situations. Now, this show is mostly black and white, it says here. You've got 59 episodes with 4 specials, 2 feature films. It says here, Series 5 and 6 were the first to be shot and broadcast in colour. The episodes had been made in black and white. However, most of the original masters for Series 5 and 6 were never archived by the BBC. Many now only exist in black and white copies of the originals. The episodes of this release are presented in colour where possible, but many of the episodes of Series 5 and 6 are now only available to watch in black and white. So, a lot of this is in black and white. There are 8 series in here, and specials. There's a complete series 1 to 8 and specials. Really funny show. It's not going to be for everybody, but it's still a hilarious show. You dirty old man, is what Harold would always say. Now we have one that's probably going to be controversial to include, and also a lot of people are going to know. This is Still Game. Now, controversial because this show isn't really British. This show is actually Scottish. But I included this show because I think it's freaking hilarious. It's about these 2 men, Jack and Victor, who are Scottish pensioners, who basically get up to all kinds of antics. Just ranging from messing up a simple painting decorating job, laughing at people falling over in the snow, going on a game hunting retreat and shooting the host in the backside, getting lost in the Scottish countryside, going to Canada and getting thrown out of a hockey game for hurling verbal abuse at the players. Just that kind of thing. Just hilarious situation. Getting trapped in a lift and one of them needing the bathroom really badly. Just really funny show that I would recommend a lot of people seek out. We have a spin-off of Only Fools and Horses. We have The Green Grass. This is all 4 series. Now, this show can best be described as you take city slickers and you take upper class city slickers and you put them in a rural setting. This is basically Only Fools and Horses meets The Good Life. It's a spin-off of Only Fools and Horses. It has its funny moments, but it's nowhere near the quality that Only Fools and Horses is. It's about Boise and Marlene, who were supporting characters in Only Fools and Horses. It's about them and their son Tyler. Has funny moments. A lot of the supporting characters are funny, but other than that, it's okay. Not one of the best British comedies by any stretch. We have one which is the most modern that is in this video. We have the Inbetweeners. This has all 3 series and the 2 movies. Now, this had its own American version, so I don't think I need to talk about it that much. But it's basically about school students, sixth formers, who are horny and basically, that kind of thing. They now wear the grade for sixth form. Who are trying to get laid, basically. It's about teenagers who are trying to get laid. It's very quotable, very funny as well. I mean, the joke is that the four guys playing the teenagers are actually in their late 20s, early 30s. So, yeah, but it's still a really funny show. And the last one we have here is the prequel to In Sickness and Health, the original, Till Death Us Do Part, which is another show that will never be re-aired. Now, as it says here, all four color series plus surviving black and white episodes, because a lot of the original black and white episodes of this show are missing because of the simple look. Though all color episodes exist, many early black and white episodes were wiped decades ago. The recent recovery of the episode Intolerance, however, alongside off-air audio recordings made on retro transmission, allows to present a complete run of all 7 series. So pretty much, a lot of the episodes in this set are, a lot of the black and white episodes in this set are reconstructions, using telesnaps, like photos, and all of their recordings. Basically, same premise as In Sickness and Health, but, in a different time period. This show is, as popular as it was controversial. Joanna Spate's classic sitcom satirized the less acceptable aspects of entrenched working-class culture and the generation gap, creating a sea-change television comedy that influenced just about every sitcom that followed. As relevant today as when it first transmitted, but controversial even more now, Spate's liberal attitude to comedy shone a light on some of the more unsavory aspects of our national character to great effect. As Spate himself said, "I didn't create Alf Garnet, I just grasped on him." Yeah. Like, mouthing off on race, immigration, player politics, any other issue that takes his fancy. So, he met fierce opposition in the form of his left wing. So, basically, this show was controversial when it aired back in the 60s, and is arguably even more controversial now. But these are the ones I own. Now, some I don't own that I want to mention. We have shows like The Young Ones, which is about college students, basically. There's also The Good Life, which is like farm life. There's Porridge, which is about prison. Open All Hours, which is about a store. There's a lot of Vicar Dibley, of course, which is about a vicarage. That show came under fire from, those groups. Is also Father Ted, but that's Irish. I do have some other sitcoms, but I didn't include them because they're either not British or not deemed classic. I didn't include stuff like Mrs. Brown's Boys because that's Irish. I didn't include a lot of others I have because they're American. I didn't include Friends, I didn't include Home Improvement, that kind of thing. I didn't include Big Bang Theory because they're all American. This was just to talk about British comedy and a lot of the shows which are staples of our culture. I would argue a lot of these shows, particularly things like Fawlty Towers and Last of Summer Wine and Only Fools and Horses and Blackadder and Dad's Army, I would say are in British DNA, pretty much, This one in particular, like I said, was the longest running British sitcom. It ran for 37 years. This is all these shows. Let me know your personal favorites in the comments, and also if you're not from the UK and you watch this, let me know if any of these shows have interest you in any way. Okay. If you like what you saw, smash the like button, slap the notification bell, smash the subscribe button, signing out. Lay guys, peace.